In this video, we will learn the basics of rounding to a certain number of decimal places. For example, if we rounded 2.064 to one decimal, the answer is 2.1. And if we rounded the decimal number 5.459 to two decimal places, the answer is 5.46. But how does this happen? Well, let's take a look. What does rounding really mean? Rounding really means we are determining which number another number is closest to. And in this video, we will round to 1 and 2 decimal places. And to do this easily, we can look at the number line. And so let's look at the number line. 4.23 is shown on the number line between 4 and 5. And if we wanted to round 4.23 to one decimal place, we need to find out which tenth 4.23 is closest to. And if we look a little closer, we see that it is between 4.2 and 4.3. And if we extend that out and we look at the number line between 4.2 and 4.3, we can see we have numbers like 4.21, 4.22, and so on. And here's 4.2 and here's 4.3. We can see that 4.23 lies here. But which tenth is that number closest to? Well, let's count the number of steps it takes to get back to 4.2. 1, 2, 3. And now let's count the number of steps it takes to get to 4.3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We see that takes a longer time. And we know that 4.23 is now closer to 4.2. And so we say 4.23 rounded to one decimal place is 4.2. Let's look at another one. 8.416. On the number line, we can see that that is between 8.4 and 8.5. And if we had to round 8.416 to two decimal places, we have to find out which hundredth 8.416 is closest to. That is because the second digit after the decimal point is the hundredths place. We can see 8.416 is between 8.41 and 8.42. And if we extend that out, we can see here is 8.41, here is 8.42, and the numbers in between go 8.411, 8.412, and so on. And here is where 8.416 lies on the number line. Let's see which hundredth that is closest to. Again, we can count the number of steps. Back to 8.41, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It takes us 6 to get there. Now let's see how many steps it takes to get to 8.42. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so it's closer to 8.42. So we say 8.416 rounded to two decimal places is 8.42. But sometimes this is difficult to know on the number line which two numbers it falls between. And if we look at the rules of rounding, what we've learned already, we know that digits ending in 1, 2, 3, or 4, we tend to round down. And digits ending in 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we round up. And in decimals, it is the same thing. But let's look at the steps that it takes instead of looking at the number line when we are given a decimal number, how we can easily identify how to round it to one or two decimal places. The first thing we are going to do is to identify the place that we are rounding to. And in this example, we are going to round to one decimal place the following number, 3.42. If we wanted to round 3.42 to one decimal place, we have to identify what place we're rounding to. That place, the first decimal place, is tenths. Now number 2 says we look at the digit to the right. Here's the digit to the right, that is the number 2. And if the digit at the right is 1, 2, 3, or 4, we will keep the digit at the left the same. However, if the digit at the right is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we will increase the digit at the left by 1. And so since this is a 2, and that falls here, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we will keep the digit at the left the same. And so in this instance, it remains at 3.4. The 4 did not change because the digit in the hundredths right next door to the right was a 2. So 3.42 rounded to one decimal place is 3.4. We can see our answer has one digit after the decimal point, and so this is now rounded to one decimal place. Let's look at number 2. Here's another question. If we wanted to round to one decimal place, the number 7.58, what do we do? First of all, we identify the place we're rounding to. Again, we're rounding to one decimal place, which is the 10th column. Step 2 says we look to the right. The digit at the right, in this case, is an 8. And we have to follow the test. Is the digit 1, 2, 3, or 4? If so, we keep the digit to the left the same. Is the digit at the right 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? If so, we increase the digit to the left by 1. And so since this is an 8, which falls here, we increase the digit at the left by 1. So instead of 7.58, we are now going to change the 5 to a 6, 7.6. That increased by 1. And so we say 7.58 rounded to one decimal place is 7.6. We see that the 8 caused the 5 in the 10th place to go up to a 6. How about this one? First step is to identify the place we're rounding to. And in this question, we are going to look at the number 92.14. To round to one decimal, we look at the digit in the 10th column, which is the first digit after the decimal point. And then we look at the digit to the right, which is a 4 in this case. And we check to see whether that digit is 1, 2, 3, or 4. If it is, we will keep the digit at the left the same. If it's 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we will increase the digit to the left by 1. In this case, since it's a 4, we are going to keep the 1 the same, and our answer is 92.1. The 1 did not change. And so 92.14 rounded to one decimal place is 92.1. Let's look at another one. Again, round to one decimal place. 27.36. We identify the place we're rounding to. In this case, one decimal. The 3 is in the 10th column. And we look at the digit to the right. In this case, it's a 6. And we check to see if that digit is 1, 2, 3, or 4. The digit at the left remains the same. If it is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, the digit at the left increases by 1. Since it is a 6, we will increase the digit at the left, which is 3, to a 4. And the answer is 27.4. That increased by 1. 27.36 rounded to one decimal place is 27.4. The 6 caused the 3 in the 10th place to go up to a 4. But how do I round now to two decimal places? We looked at how to round to one decimal place. Well, the method is the same. We use the same steps. And so to round to two decimal places, in this instance, the number 5.158, we see that there are 3 digits after the decimal point. And if we want to round to two decimal places, we again identify the place we're rounding to. So in this case, we're rounding to two decimal places, so we have to look at the digit in the second place after the decimal point. In this case, is a 5. And step 2, we look at the digit again to the right. In this case, it's an 8. And we say, is that digit a 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? We know that's an 8, and so that is going to cause the 5 to increase by 1, giving us an answer of 5.16. The 5 increased by 1 to a 6. And so 5.158 rounded to two decimal places is 5.16. The 8 caused the 5 in the hundredths column to be increased by 1. Let's try another one. Round to two decimal places, 2.374. Again, the place we're rounding to is two decimal places, and the second digit after the decimal point is the number 7 in the hundredths column. We look at the digit to the right, which is a 4. And we know that that is a 1, 2, 3, or 4, which is small enough to keep the digit in the hundredths column the same. And so our answer is going to be 2.37. The 7 stayed the same. 2.374 rounded to two decimal places is 2.37. The 4 was too small to cause the 7 to increase, and so it stayed the same, 2.37. And now it's quiz time. You have 5 seconds to answer the following. Round to one decimal place. 3.59. Time's up. The answer is 3.6. To round to one decimal place, we look at the digit right after the decimal point, which is tenths. In this case, it's a 5. And then we have to look to the right, which is a 9. Since 9 is greater than 5, that means that the 5 changes to a 6. It goes up by 1. Here's question number 2. Round this time to two decimal places. 15.458. Time's up. The answer is 15.46. In this case, since we're rounding to 2 decimal places, we look at the second digit after the decimal point, which is 5, and we look at the digit right after it. And since that is 5 or greater, it changes the 5 to a 6. And last question, round to 1 decimal place, 53.682. Time's up. The answer is 53.7. The digit right after the decimal point is a 6. And the digit right after that is an 8, which is 5 or greater, which changes the 6 to a 7 to give us 53.7. And now you've solved the mystery of how to round decimals to 1 and 2 decimal places. Well done.